this is a space for disabled people to articulate themselves, not in a yes or no, 1 to 10 format. This is a true open forum by every definition of that phrase.
Welcome to Invisible Not Broken. In this episode, our host Monica is interviewed by consultant and previous guest Nick Clemmons. Nick has a new blog on the Invisible Not Broken website called Dory's Corner, with a companion podcast coming to the network soon. In this episode, Monica and Nick discuss learning to advocate for yourself, appreciating the differences of a life with disability, and how Monica's family functions around disability.
How I'm doing? Well, I had the lovely experience of having a dentist go, "Hey, I've never seen this before." And then ask the assistant, "Have you ever seen this before?" No. It's great when medical professionals are,
Oh no.
"Hey, medical miracle right here." Like, oh, great. That never goes well for me. Like, medical miracles now, like, you're super healthy. Congratulations.
Exactly. Like you want your doctor to be honest, but there is a level of, hey, can I not be the first? Like, let me at least be the second, like, but the first, like, that is like concerning. So I totally understand that. I totally get that.
Like when your parents, like, you're going to do really special, important things when you grow up. It's like, okay, so I have a body that breaks in weird and interesting ways was not how I thought that would work out.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
that is the entire little bit. Like, what? This is what my body is like. So, like, my limbs don't do all the normal, just regular things. They do some other things in addition to, well,
Human 2.0, except the 2.0 is run by like Elon Musk.
exactly. Recall every
Shane, I just threw that right in there.
right. Like, this car it classifies as a car, but does it work? We'll see on the job. We'll see.
It works like a doorstop, which is exactly what it looks like it was designed to do.
Exactly.
Just say,
So here in Georgia, I actually saw one, and that's like seeing a unicorn because, like, and I was like, that is actually it. It's huge. It's humongous. It's like, wow, that was a lot. Okay. So,
there's so many things to make fun of, but as a disabled person who uses a wheelchair,
yes.
I'm fucking furious because those things do not stop. Their acceleration can just go. They have no visibility in those trucks. None. They have that giant pillar. They can't see anything. And it's 10,000 pounds.
And I'm like, I just really would like to know, like, how this thing got certified. Like, I understand Elon, who is this just person. I'm gonna just keep it kind. He's this person. But the other regulator people that should have some expertise in how automobiles should work. I think, maybe we need to have just a meeting about further what we allow on our road.
To have the unearned confidence of that man would just be an amazing experience. I'm always second guessing myself, and that man has no second guesses.
No, he doesn't.
That must be a very freeing empty space up there.
Oh, I'm sure it is to be a white man in America.
Yeah, that one. Can we underline that a few more times? That's a brutal and important point to be made.
So I am glad to hear that you are feeling somewhat better because I was very concerned. So everyone, Monica, she is an amazing person, world-class individual that had, I don't know if I said this to her, but she definitely helped me, I don't know, esteem, confidence, just definitely a lot of being okay with where I am. I definitely, as far as disability, it can make you feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm behind the race, or where am I? Should I be up there? And it's like, no, you are where you are, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you're good 100%. And to hear someone say that was revolutionary with a capital R, seriously. So when who we are speaking to today is not someone that is just talking the talk, but they are for real, having the action behind their beliefs. And that's something that is very, very, very just transcendent in today's society. Someone that believes in disability, in the potential of the disabled community is something that we sorely need. So this is who we're interviewing today. And I would just hope you can feel my enthusiasm speaking to her from where you are. So Monica, first of all,
Fried for coffee? You're gonna like interview me after that? Like,
oh,
Yeah, like weepy mess now. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is a podcast where our stories have largely been defined by other individuals, charts, records, books of people that researched our illness that we have never met, never will meet, probably are, somewhere we don't know. And so, what is your introduction? Who are you with or without disability? How would you say about yourself? I didn't mention any disability, your diagnosis. I do believe personally that we should all have that ability to separate from our disease. If you would like to divulge, you can. If not, we don't do that here. So you tell us what you want to know, what you want us to know about yourself. We can go from there.
I love how much consent you're giving to your guests. That's a beautiful thing. And you're already right there with it. And that's gorgeous. And thank you for the option, because I was in like the disability closet for my entire career. And that living in that kind of fear and terror that someone was going to see that I was disabled and then I would lose my job was just a 24/7 like shivery experience. And anyone who's tried to hide their actual identity, I think, can really understand what that's like, being scared of the mask flipping. And my mask flipped often and it was really hard. I had been a professional photographer. I had photographed weddings until I had to stop. And then I switched over to just doing portraits. And it got to such a brutal point that I had to leave my business. But the reason why I'm very open about my disability now. And that reason is specifically because I had an amazing client. And I had been photographing her family and she came in after I'd been having a flare and I couldn't even stand up to greet her. And I was just sort of curled up at my computer. And you know that you're trying not to cry, like everything in your brain's like, don't cry, don't cry. It's like trying not to laugh. It's like, eventually just starts spilling and you're like, what is this liquid? Stop the liquid.
Yeah.
You're ruining everything. Feelings, stop the feelings. She just looked at me and sat down just very quietly and she said, do you know what I do for a living? And I said, no, I have no idea. I'm so sorry. I didn't even ask you. And that's on me. I'm sorry. And she said, no. I'm a therapist for disabled people. I've seen how you limp. I've seen you try to like move your legs different. I know what's going on. I don't know exactly what's happening with you, but I know you're not healthy and I know you're having feelings about it. So let's talk. And oh my God, the way I wept for like an hour and how she just told me, you cannot outrun this. This is your DNA. You can't outrun your DNA. That was hard. So I have Ehlers-Danlos, which is a connective tissue disorder. It means I dislocate by moving. I am considered the worst case any of my professionals have seen. They often use me as their like, look what this can do. And that's always fun. Medical Miracle is always a highly entertaining place to be. I have POTS and mast cell activation disorder and fibromyalgia. I'm sure I'm forgetting something else, but those are the big ones. And yeah, my life changed suddenly in ways that had been changing gradually. I've been sick my entire life. I've been in and out of hospitals, in and out of surgeries my whole life because no one knew Ehlers-Danlos until I was 36. I did not get diagnosed with that until 36. So I lived my entire life just being told I was being dramatic. All the surgeries that I had to correct my dislocations, they apparently were just a thing that happens. Like I said, so that's why I'm really honest about it.
From a psychological standpoint, you've met this therapist. How do you think that affected your up to this point of just letting out this emotion of being told like, nothing's wrong? Like, how do you think that?
That's such a great question. And I'm Gen X. So, and the only reason that's important is because like when I was getting into music, the music that was starting to come out with like Tori Amos, Annie DeFranco, Jewel, it was a lot of girl with a diary with a guitar or a piano. And I had been raised in a house that was as kind as I could. I'm not bashing my family, but I am saying that it was things need to look good. They need to look right. You need to be this to be acceptable. And my body never fit into that in any way, shape, or form, aesthetically or physically. My body was not going to fit into those rules. My experiences didn't fit into the experiences that a kid or a young teenager should have. So I just couldn't, I was too messy. I couldn't hold it into like the package that was expected of me. And then having like these singer-songwriters come out and sing songs like Me and a Gun and Both Hands, like these songs were like so brutally honest and like pink underbelly vulnerable. And instead of that looking weak, it looked strong to me. It looked brave. And because they said that, I was able to process some of what I was going through. And I thought I just didn't have the right not to be honest with people around me. I just felt like that my responsibility, not anyone else's, just me personally, I feel like I had the responsibility to try to be as real and open and vulnerable so that if my experience could help someone else feel as less alone as like Age of Franco and Tori Amos helped me feel, that would be great.
I totally understand that. Number one, using media, using other disabled people to help process that ability, identity, and how, because I think when you talk about moving through the world and your body is not doing what other bodies should be doing. Myself, so one thing about sickle cell is there's like delayed puberty. And I'll never forget this picture from the 8th grade. And I was like 4 feet tall in the 8th grade. And I have this picture. My sister, she was like 5'4", 5'5" at this time. So I'm like a full like foot and a half shorter than she is. And we're twins. We're born on the same day. And so like to have this measuring stick of you should be up there, but you're down here. But I had a friend who like music was for you that really helped me like, you're here and that's good. Like that, this is okay. Like, and I really feel like that is such a great outlet to have, to be able to say like, hey, like I see this honesty reflected and I want to reflect that in myself. Like, do you think that education was something, as far as do you translate that education to your photography, the honesty that you felt that you had to explain, or not explain, but to divulge?
I want to go real quick over something you just said, because I'm finding it really interesting, the divisions between men and women. And I don't think there's as many as we try to put here. And when you're talking about the experiences that you had in delayed, I'm sorry, I don't mean to like switch the interview, but I'm just so fast.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
As you're talking about the delayed puberty and the experiences you had in a body that society wasn't expecting of you and you weren't expecting of you, I just want to like throw out there that like this experience of quick puberty that young women are going through, and or people who have ovaries are going through, is there's a trauma there that I think we can all bond around.
It is.
And
It is.
because you were in a body that wasn't up to the speed that you thought you would be at. And then I was at a body that was at light speed beyond what my emotions were ready to deal with. And
Right.
there's so much there to connect with. And I just want to throw that out there because I wish men and women spoke a little bit more about the similarities of things we go through so we can find that empathy to each other.
It's so much more similarity. And I think even if you say because I think sometimes we think about disability as an official, some sort of scientific diagnosis.
Mhm.
And like, if you don't have a phrase or you don't have a actual term, then you're not, and that's not true. It does not require this almost like a legitimacy of disability,
Mhm.
if you will. And if you don't meet that threshold, which we all know the threshold is very, very high to meet. Otherwise, it's like, well, just get over it, or and we can really bond over those things and really have much more nuanced conversation about how we experience the world in a health matter than that's, totally not talked about, I would say, on a day-to-day basis, even in 2024.
As you're talking about like the bar for disability, it was like I took one fear and then I put that fear down of, okay, people are going to know.
Mm.
And then I picked up this other fear of, am I sick enough for people to believe it? And that's such a brutal fear to pick up. And it defined my life for almost 10 years. I was scared to use a cane because what if one day I didn't need to use my cane and then someone saw me and then had feelings about it? What if I got out of my car and I was standing while my wheelchair was being brought to me?
Mhm.
Which, by the way, I had a woman come and swear me out from one side to the next in front of my toddler because of that. But like the experience of like watching memes go across the internet of, oh, holy miracle in aisle 5 as a woman standing up to get the booze, which honestly, that woman deserved the booze for free after dealing with those idiots. Like it's that new fear of like, oh my gosh, am I sick enough? Do people understand that my sick goes in different levels? Some days I can walk the dog, other days I can't get to the toilet. Like, and then trying to explain it to my family because my family is lovely and they love me, but my family believes in solution and there's no solution to my DNA.
Mhm.
And there's no trying to explain, like, I can't be wrapped in bubble wrap because I can dislocate by pointing at something. Or I could do a yoga class and be fine. Just depends. And so my mom wanting to like wrap me in bubble wrap so I didn't get hurt and then cause more inconvenience to everyone else was really emotional for both of us. We had lots of real brutal talks about that. I am lucky that I have the best husband in the world. And he just said, I take your lead. You tell me what you can do. And I believe you are my best friend. That's the level. But all of my friends in disability world, they don't have that with their spouses or their kids. And my kids have always been so good to me in so many ways. We definitely have our problems as a family, but it's never us against each other. And that was amazing to have my kids like believe me. Like the core family was so important to that. Having society outside not believe me was really hard. I don't look sick. I look exactly as you see me. This is no filter. Actually, I barely got the face on for you. This is the most effort I put into this in about 7 days. So you are welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
People don't look at me and go, oh, she's sick, unless I have the walker or the cane or the wheelchair. And then that's a thing. Now, the other thing I do is I do use the walker or the wheelchair whenever I'm out, even if I feel like I could try. And the reason is, number one, I can faint at any moment. Number two, I can dislocate at any moment. The most important is if I don't have something around me, sweet little children will like run around and then run to my leg, or a dog wants to say hi and jumps on me, and then I'm out for the next 6 months. So I found to have that as a preemptive, as a I need space, just like a visual to everyone of I'm fragile. Please be nice to me.
Yes. And I think the one thing I hear is, especially your husband, your children, is the centering of your voice. And I feel like the one
good way to that.
The disability is our voices aren't centered. It is other people and well-intentioned, some not well-intentioned, and our needs get totally. And when we speak with our voice has complexity, it has layers, it has nuance. And other people is this black and white, and it's very just definitive. And I wish medicine was so definitive, but it really, like you said, there's some days you're great. And even on my sickle cell, there's some days like I can't even get out of bed. And there's some days like, great, let's go. Like, what we doing? Like, where's the party? And so to have to fight for that centering is another hurdle and obstacle that I think is so difficult. Do you find that you've had to learn how to express your voice, or is this something that other people have helped you find just over time?
So I don't want to get too dark on you, but if this is a part you want to cut out, we can cut it out. I've spoken openly about this before, but I have had tremendous history of SA in my life. Hence, I lived where it wasn't any different now. But starting from when I was a very small child all the way through my early 20s, this was a very constant part of my life. So I was already behind that 8 ball of centering my voice. I present as very feminine, or like as feminine as I can with like no makeup on usually and Birkenstocks. But people will like, it's hard a lot of times for people to take someone seriously, especially a young woman. So I was taught very early that my voice, what I believed was wrong with me, what I believed was wrong with the world, or what was wrong with the people around me was not heard. So when I got sick, it was a real trauma in the family. It was very hard because while there were some answers, there weren't really good answers. And my parents were tired and didn't have a lot of support. So it's like, can't you just, what's the newest pain today? And because like anyone who has Ehlers-Danlos now will tell you the words growing pains will make you vomit. Like it will just set off like in your body because they're like, it's just growing pains, get over it. And you're like, I cannot stand anymore. I'm going to start screaming. So in all these different ways through my life, and I'm sure you have plenty of these experiences yourself, just being you in your little human avatar, almost enough to be dismissed in and of itself. And then you add disability onto it. Oh my God. So everything that I've learned on how to be as loud as I can, and I definitely falter on this. This is one of the things I fail at all the time, but I keep working on it, has just come from number one, raising my kids. They have taught me so much. I have a lot of friends who are in their 30s and they have taught me so much about boundaries that I was never taught. They have been so good at teaching me boundaries by holding their own boundaries. Them actually having the boundaries around them and then going, yeah, that's the boundaries you will respect if you're going to be here. I was like, holy, that's a thing I could have done. I'm sorry. Wait, where was the memo? I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, I need that memo. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess my reaction to things like boundaries, I've seen other people have reactions to boundaries that are bad. They are angry about those. And I can understand that because I think my first reaction when someone did that to me was like, wait a minute. I haven't gotten to do that. I was like, oh, I'm annoyed because I'm not mad at them. I'm mad that I didn't know to do that. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Like if you meet it with curiosity instead of judgment, it really adds something. Daughter is the one who's called me out the most. Whenever I've tried to accept something that I shouldn't accept, she's gone, Mom, would you be okay if that happened to me? What would you tell me to do? And I'm like, oh, you little smart human. I mean, she has gotten me,
Yeah.
both my children have forced me out of my comfort zone to advocate for myself by saying, I need you to do this because you need to show me how to do this. And I was like, yeah, that's my job as your mom. My job as your mom is to show you how to do the hard things or give you tools so you can do the hard things. So I have to get real comfortable doing hard things. Damn it.
Getting comfortable doing hard things. I think number one, your story is valid. It's important. And so you're comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with it. So I have no qualms about keeping this in any point whatsoever. That's number one. Number two, we've spoken about your history of activism and your passion for activism. And when I hear you talk about your voice and how your kids have played a part in that, how do you think you've, taking your passion, your family upbringing in activism, and have you gotten that to your children, or how has that transferred in any way to your children?
Well, it transferred my parents were hippies. So they marched, they were the kitchen table for breakfast and dinner was politics. That's what we talked about. We talked politics, we talked philosophy, we talked reading, we talked literature. You had to hold your own in that house to get attention. You better be smart, you better be able to talk, and you better have real researched opinions about all the topics. And so that was passed down from my parents. And I'm very grateful for that. And I think that's an important part of raising kids, is to make them aware of the world around them and to teach them to meet things. At least for myself, for my family, I believe that meeting things with curiosity instead of judgment
I agree.
is probably one of the best ways forward. And I did just want to say one thing about essay. I'm not going to actually say the words because I keep getting taken down whenever I do. So I'm going to just say real quick about that is I have no shame in that because I didn't do it. The person who did it, actually the multiple people who did it, they're the ones who deserve shame and fear. And they're the ones who should be scared about people talking. I shouldn't be scared about talking. So I just want to put that out there for anyone who is hearing this and just needs to hear the shame does not belong with you. It is one more mask that I had to let drop, was that fear of people finding that out, because I held that for 20 years. Letting that drop and shatter to the ground and just walk away from it and let people deal with however they needed to deal with that information. Oh, there's been so much freedom in just letting the masks drop. I cannot tell you. As far as what I bring to my children is I try to teach them, I try not to judge other people in a negative way around them, unless we're just talking about Elon Musk, which I'm sorry, I will judge that negatively. But I do try to constantly talk with them about not just issues in the world, but even I'm very vulnerable with my kids. There's very little my children don't know about me or what I'm thinking or feeling. When they were little, if they did something that, if they're a 5-year-old, when they were 5, if they said something mean to me, I hate you, mom, I'd be like, that is definitely a big feeling. I personally love you. Liking you at the moment's a little bit of a challenge, but I really love you. What you said did make me very sad. I am very sad right now. That really hurt my feelings. And I don't know if that's the right or the wrong way to parent. I'm just saying that I just always felt like I'm not good at not being honest. And that's how I raised the kids. And we always talked about what was going on in the world. We talked openly and honestly about things that were unfair. And one of the hardest things was not making things right, because I can't make most of this right. I absolutely can't. And then I think a lot of parents hear their kids go, but the polar bears, but I'm scared. And it's yeah, I'm scared too, kid. I'm terrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how to make this right. And I don't, but we do have to discuss it. And your feelings are valid. And I think that was the hard thing for me, was when I was growing up, I was like, okay, everything's on fire. Everything's really bad. Everything's really scary. Reagan is terrifying. You need to still smile and go to school and do all the things and hit all the markers. And inside, I'm like, what? It's acid rain, but there's all that's happening.
Right.
And I feel like we're right back to that right now and talking to the kids about yes, you can be concerned. You can be terrified. You can be worried. I highly encourage you to find ways that you can make something better. Do the Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers and see how you can join them. But we also are here. And since we're here and we're in these little avatars that can actually do things in the world, I think we still have to focus. And that's my hard thing that I've been working on for the last, 5 years of stress and terror, is remembering that I'm here. I can't change everything. I can't make everything better, but I can do what I'm here to do. And if it's true, I have to try to use that time.
I think that's a good point. I think the amount of energy that we have to utilize is one to, like you said, we have to be able to have these discussions. We have to be able to be with our personal selves and present and show up for us. I do yoga, and I always so a friend of mine helped me start doing yoga, and he would always say, you should give yourself a pat on the back. I was like, for what? He was like, you shut up for yourself today. Like you did something great. Like that was excellent work. And I used to think like, what is he talking about? But I think as I've gotten older, it's like I show up myself, I show up for others, and I do my best. And I think that's great. I really don't think that is a bad thing to impart to your kids. And I even think the whole conversational piece about topics that you and your parents would discuss, I think that's something that is so important because I think sometimes we get to our adult years and it's like you didn't have this conversation about boundaries, or maybe that wasn't a societal conversation at that time. And
No.
important to talk about the thing as we see them, as we feel them, because sometimes that one little conversation can give you so much energy or belief or motivation. I think my mom, one thing she always would tell me, and it was literally one conversation, but I came home, it was a sixth grade and I had just switched schools and I was getting bullied a lot. Like everybody was like taller than me, bigger than me. And I didn't do gym class. Like that wasn't part of my IEP was I didn't have to do gym class. And it was like, what are you doing? You're not doing this. And she was like, how do you feel about yourself? And I was like, I feel good about myself. I'm okay. And that carried me through high school, college, because I feel good about myself. Like I'm okay. I'm not in pain. I'm not putting myself in danger. And how I feel about myself is a good thing. And that should matter. So I definitely think, no, that's definitely, at least from my humble opinion, that's good. That's good stuff. So I can't say like it's right or wrong, but I say in my opinion, it's great.
You're saying about like with schooling and the importance of being able to access school. My youngest does have a lot of my disabilities and they're just starting to really start to show up. And public school was not going to work because I don't want my child fainting in school. That's very dangerous for so many reasons. And the school that my child would have been going to would not have been a safe place. Physically, emotionally, all of it would not have worked. We were able to access an online school. And that was amazing because the access of education is a huge passion of mine. I was almost unable to graduate from high school because of the surgeries I had to have. And watching my youngest go through a lot of the same, like, oh God, I'm going to be missing classes. My oldest had really bad grades because of all the medical testing he had to go through. So I was just really happy that that's another aspect of parenting I was able to offer, but with a lot of help from my parents. We had to go through a private program on, but it does make a lot of difference when a kid is not being physically prone through every stressor and emotional stressor every day. It can just focus on the learning. I mean, we are missing some fun and cool stuff about going to school, but my child doesn't have to wake up at 6 a.m. My child can wake up at 9 a.m. and go to school. And then there's like a good break where my child doesn't have to go out in the heat and go running between classes. Doesn't have to sit upright in a chair for 6 hours, which for me was like, those chairs, do you remember those? Or did you have those chairs where it had like the desk around and like my little allergies and this like crunched up body? I would just be crying at the end of the day.
I don't do well in the cold. So you just sit in this little thing and it's just AC, just blasting. And so like sitting in a confined like space. So even when I went to go see Avengers for 3 hours, I was like, I wanted to get up, but I was so into the movie. I didn't listen to my mind or my body. And I sat there and when I got up, like I could not walk for 2 days. So like, it was like, I totally understand oh my goodness, just the terribleness of sitting in a desk for 6 hours a day. Like it's terrible.
It's just not doable. And then like, well, if you go into the whole thing about education someday, if you want to, I'm just saying like, there's so much about access for disability where I think that disabled people are some of the best thinkers, we're some of the best students, we're some of the best employees. And the reason that we are the best at this is there's no aspect of our lives that we can do as red. Like there's nothing we can do that's just like, well, that's how you do it. Every day is figuring out a new way to put on underwear without falling over. Thank you, true story. Figuring out how to brush teeth without like popping wrists or being able to like get transferred from your bed to your wheelchair. We are constantly having to be so far outside the box for just daily things that to think really critically and to think of innovative solutions is second nature to us. And I think that if we had access, which I'd really hoped that would be the one good thing of COVID, was that education and work would open its doors to us to a whole new work field. It would have been such an exciting experience for the disability community because we are valuable. We are so important. We are a super underutilized resource.
Yeah. Our value is very underutilized. And I think when you talk about putting your son in a position where school is the priority, I think that is so invaluable. When I was in high school, I had a surgery when I was 6 or 7 to take out my gallbladder, and it damaged part of my bladder. So I've always had trouble holding my urine as long as other people. And every single year in high school, the first like 2, 3 months of the year, like I was like, wait, where's this class in relation to the bathroom? And I would have on the way to the bathroom because I'm trying to figure out, well, I don't want to be late. I want to be perceived as a normal student that is, not having any of these issues. And, when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, you don't really want to like publicize that to people. So it is a mental grind to think about, okay, well, hold on. This is the shortest distance from this class to this class. And that is so to have to go through that wasn't great, but to be able to use my mind to have to accomplish something, that is something that is so applicable to any job that is outside of the box thinking. That is I had to be collaborative with my teachers and learn how to speak in a way that was discreet for myself, but also very quick and concise. And so I think there are a lot of tools and abilities that we possess that are often overlooked because we cannot fulfill this very capitalistic idea of a 9 to 5, or I only take so many PTO days per, quarter or whatever. And I think that is such a travesty to society to reduce us, number one, to a illness, and number two, to not value us for all the other things that we can produce instead of just an able body.
I love how you said that. I'm trying to remember the quote, but it was something, and it was for a different reason, but I read a quote that, you don't owe anyone pretty. You don't owe anyone thin. And to that, you don't owe someone a healthy body. That's not something you owe. And I had been so conditioned in my life with all the magazines and all that. If you grew up in the early 2000s, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about with like the weight, the way we treated Britney, the way we treated Christine, like the way we treated people. You have to be this thin, this pretty for anyone to even hear you speak. And then if they hear you speak, you're too pretty to have an opinion. Like they're stunning. And then so like also out on the unhealthy body. Yeah, that's such a thing about like what we owe. And we don't owe the physical. Like we owe our effort, we owe our kindness, we owe our understanding. These are things we owe. None of that should matter to our avatars. Like these little like skin stamps, man, like that should not be a part of the dialogue.
It shouldn't be. And it really is. And when I was in college, I told my sister about something and she was like, that doesn't exist. I'm like, it does. I was like, there's a thing called pretty privilege. And are they certain people because they fit whatever, whether if it's, a news anchor, and we think they have the photogenicness to be able to transfer. But whether or not you can report the news has nothing to do with your physical looks. Like those two things have no relation to one another. But for some reason, we only think people that are photogenic can deliver the news, which that's not true. And
I really blame the media on this one because it's always anyone disabled or not conventionally pretty is the villain. That's always the thing. That's the new, that's what it is that's your code. If someone's disabled, they are most likely going to be a villain who's gone crazy with pain and is destroying the world. When like all of us in chronic pain, you're like, I don't know, when's the new Netflix series coming out? Because I'm not moving next week. Like we are not destroying the world. We can't get out of bed. Like let's
exactly. And I even think this dichotomy, when we talk about media representation, we've talked about this before, of either number one, they're so damaged, they're so broken, but they became this sympathetic, empathetic person that was just so wonderful, or they were just this evil, mad villain that just wanted to destroy the world.
Okay. In the super nice person, they're always waiting to die.
They are always waiting to
die so that everyone else can live a nice life. That's always, sorry, that's just.
Yes. And so that's always the caveat with being this nice person that you're just, we were just so sad that and it's like, we are just as complex as we have our good days, we have our bad days. There are days I'm good. And then some days I'm like, this is terrible. And so we are just as complex as any other group of people, but to be reduced to this dichotomy of two, and there's only two paths. There's never anything in remotely in the middle. It is so it's so terrible. And media, it is unfortunate that we have to combat this, because then you have people that in their mind, they're either biases from either ignorance or just total non-exposure for disabled people, have those either confirmed or in some other way affirmed by media. And
Yeah.
that's so it's very unfortunate when we all, whether we want to acknowledge or not, interact with disability every day. And so we all know someone with disability, whether they acknowledge it to you, which they don't owe you, and that's no one owes you an explanation for their health state. Like, that's not a thing. Like the whole Kate thing, that was very disappointing to me. I did not like that. I don't even think a situation where, like a Chadwick Boseman, it was shocking. I was, oh my goodness, my Black Panther has died. I grieved his death, but I didn't feel like, why didn't he tell us? And he should, no. If he felt that that was the best decision for him and his close loved ones, then that's all that matters. And I'm okay with that. If he's okay with it, I'm okay with it. And that is an education I think we are still as a society trying to get down. And do you feel like there is a movement towards that understanding, or we still have work to do in that regard?
I think that we are, for better or worse, very social little creatures. Humans, the one and only thing we're born able to do is to hear. That's the first thing we can, and most of us we can hear voices, or we can at least sense patterning. And that, of course, is different for other people. But I'm just saying, for the majority of babies born, the first thing that they're noticing is sound, and they can pick apart the people's voices. And the reason that I say this is because we're always looking to mimic. We are always looking for what we want to be like, what we should be like, what we should not be like. And for better or worse, the media is the largest group that will tell us what we should be like, what we want to be like, and what we're not like. But there's only, like, I think 6 people who decide what goes out into the media, and they are not looking like either one of us. And as far as I can tell, they are not disabled, and they are not hiring anyone right now. My God, the entertainment industry is in shambles right now. But without diversity, you get a lot of people who rely on the tropes of the past. They're not paying
Sure.
attention. We did get some really good representation in College Girls, and I'm blanking on her name, and I would be really embarrassed, except I blanked on my own child's name the other day. So please forgive me. You are a brilliant actress. I will find your name. We are wheelchair twins. You have the same wheelchair I have, and I follow you on everything. So it's not like I don't care. I cannot remember her name. She is gorgeous.
Giving
Stunning.
enough ancillary information for she feels acknowledged, because names, I blank on names all the time. It's like, what was their name? It was Jay something, I think. Oh, I totally understand.
I perfected the golden retriever stare. I am
Yeah.
friendly, I am nice, I am not mean, but I have no idea who you are right now. But we got that great representation. Doctor Who even tried to recover the reputation of every evil character is in a wheelchair. They did try. I definitely think they chose the wrong showrunner for that, but it's another discussion from a total nerd about Doctor Who. I am seeing a little bit of a change and an uptick that I think that is thanks to the other part of media, which is social media. And in having all these creators who found a way to get their voices elevated, which if they figure that out, please let me know, because I have no clue how to do it. But in doing that, people are able to see the everyday lives. So if you look at things like gay rights, when I was growing up, if you had 2 men kissing on a screen, they would have this "please get your children out of the room" message. I don't think you're old to remember that, but like there was like a big card that would appear on your screen saying, "Have young children exit the room." They did not do this for murderers or horrible torturers or the horrible gunfights. No, they did this for people being affectionate. How that changed was through media. And it was brutal and hard. And while I don't particularly care for Ellen, she was a huge change in that with that Ellen show. Now, her career suffered, but from that, we started to get more sitcoms like Modern Family, where they were showing the everyday life, because when you live in small pockets and
Right.
people aren't allowed to be themselves or out loud, you can imagine all sorts of things about what their lives are like. But if you keep getting shown over and over and over again that other human, it really does change things. So if we can manage to do that for other things, as well as the gay community, if we can show other groups, especially with disability, that'd be amazing. There was a Ritz cracker commercial that made me cry. I cried over a cracker commercial because it was a mom in a wheelchair. And what was the whole thing? Not a big deal. She was making food for her toddler who was sitting on her lap in a wheelchair. And I would say I've never seen anyone show a mother in a wheelchair before. I'd never seen that. And when I was told I'd be in a wheelchair, I was 6. I was told that I would either be in a wheelchair by 18 or by 30, depending on what I decided to do with a surgery thing. And my dad broke down. I wasn't as sad as he was. I thought, wow, cool. No boy is going to grab my ass again. This is fantastic. I love this personal space. Yes. But my dad just started crying because he had never seen disabled people living. So in his mind, he said, but you're never going to get married, but you're never going to have kids, but you're never going to work. And those were the things that was the reality for my dad, because no one had shown him that, yeah, I did all those things. I gone through degrees. I have 2 very fascinating little humans that I created, and marriage I've done quite a few times. I don't think I found the one that stuck. So none of that ended up being true, but that was his reality because that's all he'd been shown.
You mentioned your dad's reaction, and I remember I was in high school. I took a history class, and my teacher at the time, he was a huge, like, New Deal, like that was he loved history, and New Deal was his thing. And he would talk about how Eleanor Roosevelt, and he looked up to her and how her impact and just the civil rights of many vast, groups of people. And I think he said he felt like if she had media, where would the rights of many groups of people be if she had the, especially visual medium as it was today, or back then it was like late 10s. So, which is still more advanced than what she had. And I think it is very important. It is. I think to have seen something, to have witnessed it is transformational. It really is. Do you think that the witnessing, but I guess more importantly, the experiencing for you when it came to your son's quality of life or education, how do you think you transferred your experience and your understanding of seeing an actress in a wheelchair, how that helped you be a parent to a child that has a disability?
When you say witnessing, I think we just have to look at sports for just a minute to see how powerful witnessing something is. There are records, sports records that had held for decades, and then someone broke it. And then the next year, someone broke it again and broke it again and broke it again. Everything is impossible until someone does it. And then all of a sudden, everyone knows how to do it. And it's amazing to watch. And I see it the most commonly in sports where, oh, this is not possible. This is the best it can go. And then Simone Biles comes out and it's like,
and does it with oh my, flawless.
Yeah, like I've been watching that with my jaw on the ground going, wait a minute, what was her husband's name again? I don't remember. Sorry, that was a whole nother shade.
We don't.
By the time I'd seen that,
I never heard of her, my behind.
Oh, that was, yeah. I feel like I'm way too old to get this involved in people I don't know's lives. But watching that go down and then watching Taylor Swift be happy has been like this really wild moment for me.
Dichotomy.
Yeah, I'm like, can we just, decide that we're going to be with someone we like them? Like, can we just make that be the most, where like, if you choose to be with another person, you are choosing to like them and you're choosing to be team them. And most importantly, team us. Like that's how my husband and I have done like 17 years of marriage is it's team us. Like you cannot choose something that is so detrimental to the relationship or the other person. Like you always have to be uplifting each other. Like you always have to be sharing. Oh, sorry, that's a whole sideline. But you'd asked me about the commercial. I'd already had children by the time I'd seen that commercial. I had children insanely young, especially for the area I live in. I was like teenage mother for the area I live in. It was like, I was 23. I was as old as my son is now, which isn't. But the point being is I had always kind of done that with the wheelchair. Like it was actually really helpful to have a wheelchair when I had a 2-year-old. Because I didn't have to go chasing him. He wanted a ride. So we could be in a crowded place. I didn't have to worry about even grabbing him because he was sitting on my lap because he liked the ride. So that was a really kind of a helpful part of disability. I think people see disability as a full negative, and there's a lot of positives too.
They do see it as a full negative. And speaking of your husband, I think that is the love part is, I think, one of the most damaging. It's like somehow you are just this, dysfunctional good that no one could ever possibly.
Oh my God.
Let alone love.
everyone looks at your partner and going, you are such a good person.
Right.
Oh,
Like you're doing like you a favor. Like, hello, I am a person and we went into this together. Like it wasn't, like and I
people too,
yeah. And I don't understand. I don't that is such a it's so damaging because it gives the young 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old that is like, well, am I gonna be like, no, you can have any life that anybody else has. Like that.
I mean, to be fair, probably never going to play for the NFL. I'm just throwing that out there that dream is done. Travis Kelce can have it.
He can have that. He can. But do you think that was that a thought that ever crossed your mind as far as when you saw your dad's, he was, not obviously you're his daughter. He's, he wants as much.
You can say he wanted a healthy kid. That's okay. That's what he wanted. He had thought like,
I was gonna say obstacles. I wasn't saying kid.
oh, okay. I was gonna say like I really feel like for a while, a lot of getting through it with my parents was like I wasn't the kid they asked for. Anyway, like I am obstinate. I am stubborn. I have no ability not to call out what I see. I can't shut up. It's a medical reason I can't shut up, but I can't. And especially if I see something wrong, I have a real hard time just going, I guess we'll blow past that. And that wasn't what they had thought they were going to get. They were both raised as like they're in a generation where the kids were quiet and you do what your parents say. And they both have been raised like that. So when I came out and they're like, we're is to question everything, honey, you should be free. And then they're like, oh shit, we're the authority. Oh, fuck. Oh, she's questioning us. Oh God. And bless their hearts, they really tried. They thought they were doing a thing, but I also wasn't easy. I was sick from the time I was 8. I was in and out of hospitals. I almost died a few times. And then after that, there was just all these issues with like the Ehlers-Danlos, which we didn't know what it was. I was in constant agony. I was always having a new surgery to correct my legs. It wasn't what they had expected. They expected you have a kid. It hits these milestones, like the milestones your child's going to reach. There might be a few little bumps along the road, but you'll get through it. She'll graduate high school, go to college, meet someone, get married, and have her own kids. And there you go. Cycle completed. All good. And I threw every wrench into that I could. I didn't meet any of those expectations.
Is that something that you consider when you think about like your thoughts about adulthood now? And do you think your experience has changed your viewpoints at all as far as like that your kids like, hey, like it's okay if the milestones don't come in alphabetical order or maybe they don't, has that?
Oh, and my parents and I talked very openly about all of this for years. This is nothing that I'm like saying that I did not speak directly to my parents about. But with my own kids, it's you do not owe me children. You do not owe me hardly anything. The thing you owe me is to go out in the world and try to be a kind, good person who is the best version you can be of yourself. That's what I ask of you. However that looks to you, that's not my choice. My children made choices that I'm like, oh God, please don't. And I curl up in my bedroom and I call my best friend and I cry on the phone, but I'm not going to, that's not the conversation I get to have with them because they are their own people. They're on a journey, they're figuring out, and half the stuff that made my life were things that I know my parents as good people would have wanted to keep me from. But those experiences made me who I am. So in my parenting, I believed my children about their bodies. So even if I wasn't sure, I really tried to believe them when they're like, I'm sick. And it's like, okay, are you sure you don't want to go to school today? Or you're actually sick? I don't see a fever, but it's that line that you're walking of like, is this a story? Is this true? But I would rather always default on the, I believed you. I screwed that up once with my son and he threw up all over me in a car. So I learned real quick there that you believe your kid when they say they're going to throw up. But I felt like to build the blocks of I believe your words and you are the expert of your body was more important than them pulling one over on me. Like it was more important for them to like know, hey, mom actually believes me when I say I'm sick. And now I'm sitting here in my room and I could have been at school, but at least I know mom actually trusts me when I say something. And that seemed to be more important to me than like, I don't like this outsmarting your children thing. It's exhausting and I will lose. I will absolutely lose. I'm not as smart as them. It's okay. I'm willing to admit it. Like
I think that is an important building block that some people never experience that belief from their parents that what they're saying about their bodies is true and accurate and valid.
Yeah. And even when they were little, I wouldn't let the doctors talk to me. I made the doctors talk directly to them as soon as they had any level of reasoning. And before the age of reasoning, I made the doctors tell my children what they were doing with them. So even as like a newborn, I'd be like, you need to tell them that you're moving their diaper. Like, and if they wouldn't do it, I would tell my child, like, this is what we're doing with your diaper. This is what we're going to be turning over. We're going to be moving. When I was a photographer, this started as a weird reason. I used to photograph newborns all the time. And I found the quickest way to get a freaked out newborn to calm down is just to talk to them in this voice and explain everything I was doing. Now, either I bored them to sleep, which is very possible, or it just comforted them in some way to hear what was happening before it was happening. So I just started doing that like all the time. It was just, I just explain everything I'm doing. And I guess this might be really sad, but it wasn't sad to me. When my father was dying, he got post-verbal. So at the end, he couldn't talk and he couldn't express himself. He could only make sounds. So I was with him almost every single moment I was physically capable of being there. I was one of the big parts of his caregiving. And I did the same thing with him I did with my babies, which was everything I did, I explained what I was doing while I was doing it. And it was the only way we could calm him down. Was to be like, okay, Dad, we're going to be moving you up. We're going to roll you to the side so that we can get this thing taken care of. You're going to feel this now. This is what's going to happen next. And he would calm right down. So I think there's something to like trusting someone to know their body. And even if the person can't express anything to you, allowing them that personhood and the autonomy and the respect of not just doing things to them, like really explaining each and everything you're doing. I think there's just a level of respect there that makes someone feel safer.
I totally agree with that because, and my condolences on your dad.
Oh, thank you. It's just 2 years right now. And I'm still like right now was like right when we found out about the cancer was like, I think today. It's like, oh, I can't believe it's been 2 years.
Oh no. Is that's been such a hard time? Is that when you think about, is there a moment that you feel like was your best moment with him? Or do you feel like there's a moment you have that's like, I would really like, I just look on that with so much fondness?
I have so many. My dad was one of the best humans I've ever met. And that is not to say he was perfect. He had a lot of issues. He had anger issues. He had a huge amount of misogyny to like unlearn. What I mean when I say is he's one of the best people I've ever met was he was never comfortable stopping his emotional growth. So through his whole life, he would always meet hey, that was kind of misogynistic with the why. And then he would listen and he would try to figure out how to do better. And like, I think about the year before he died, he and I always would fight about feminism. And he was like, honey, I actually really want to learn more about this. So can you and I separately, because I don't want to watch the show with you, watch Outlander. I've been hearing about Outlander. I'm like, I am not watching that with you. There is no way you and I are sitting in the same room watching that. He only admits that I had sex because I have 2 children. That's the only way he will admit that ever happened. So I was like, great, cool. He's like, and I just want your feminist perspective on each of the episodes. I was like, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? Don't make me faint so early in the morning. Like, come on here, my friend. So we did that for a year. We went through the entire series and I would explain what I thought was the feminist take of what was happening. He was like, that's really interesting. I hadn't even considered that. I've never thought about any of that. And so when I say he's like the best person, I mean that he was always willing to be curious instead of defensive. And that was beautiful. As far as like a moment, just what I had talked about, like holding him in my arms because he would lay back and it was every 5 minutes he would sit up and do this weird like spin with his body. And then I'd have to roll him back down. So if you imagine Eller Stainless girl here, I had to wrap my arms around this man and do this dance with him, like just swinging back and forth and then gently like putting him back to bed. And I had to do that every 5 minutes for 12 hours. And so there is something so incredibly beautiful about giving that love and care to another person. And I don't think it's just my father. Like, I think if I was a hospice nurse, I would feel the same. It's such a fucking honor to give care and compassion and love to someone and to try to create some comfort. And I think that's, we're going back to like, just going back a little bit to like the difference between men and women. I think that's one of the things that breaks my heart the most about what we do to men is that we try to deny men this role of caregiving. And it breaks me because I think it's such a beautiful and important part of being human. And I think that's one of the kind things, and not necessarily just human. We've definitely seen other animal species do this, but you know what I mean? Is like, we try to take an incredibly beautiful experience away from 50% of the people and tell them we're doing them a favor. Mind blown. So that was like one of my favorite moments, my dad.
Mhm.
And I miss him so much. And thank you for letting me talk about him because I've been really missing him lately.
Oh, no problem at all. This is a space for disabled people to articulate themselves, not in a yes or no, 1 to 10 format. This is a true open forum by every definition of that phrase.
He kind of taught me how to be disabled because he got very sick for about 20 years and very sick. And for almost 15 years, he was bedbound. And without his guidance, I could not have survived this. Like,
Mm.
he is absolutely the one who taught me how to be disabled. And that's a skill. I mean, I think people think like you get disabled and you just roll with it. No, oh my God, no, no, you need, if you are disabled right now and you just got disabled, you're long COVID, you were in a car accident. If this is new to you, and a fucking therapist now yesterday, like, oh my gosh, you will need help to learn this new chapter of your life. And it's going to be a fascinating chapter. You will find things about yourself you never knew, but it's a skill. This is not something you're just born knowing how to do.
No, and I think that that skill that you talk about, it's born out of this society that is so unwilling to understand disability, to really interact with it, and so it is a skill.
Yeah.
It's a skill. If there's a skill that you could say, "Oh my goodness, I'll give this to another some new disabled person today," what skill would you impart to them from that you've learned from your disability?
The micro of the world is as vast and infinite as the macro.
That is profound.
Thank you. I actually made that up on the spot. So it's nice to know my brain still works.
Oh my goodness, your brain is like
Oh my God, it used to be so good. Like, no, my brain used to be amazing. My brain now is like, oh, did you take the clothes out of the washer in the last 3 weeks? Like, my brain used to be good. I don't know what happened to it, but that was a good moment. It was a nice flash. I actually got that from an A.S. Byatt book, not the actual phrasing, but the concept of it I first got from her book, which was Angels and Insects. And it was this explorer who had gone off in the world, and he was back at his patron's house, and he was just talking to the governess, and she was doing this entire research paper with the children on ants and an anthill. And he was so jealous of what she was doing. He's like, I would wish I was this good. I wish I could do this. And she said, my world is closer at hand than yours. And that just blew the top off my head of, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, you go into like cells and it's infinite. Like, below zero is as infinite as above zero. And when you're disabled, your world gets smaller, but it also gets a hell of a lot bigger.
It does. It does. And I guess I would just like to wrap everything up by asking you one not disabled question, not even like a super serious question, but what was wrong with the Doctor Who showrunners?
Oh my gosh. Get me in trouble. I do not like Russell T Davies. I find him incredibly misogynistic. And I feel like he over sexualizes women in almost every show he's done. And the female characters are usually very throwaway. And it deeply upsets me when I see it. I am still salty about how he handled Chris Eccleston back in the day. The stories that I heard that happened on that set were unacceptable. And I don't think he's the right person to be discussing marginalized communities and to heal the damage that Doctor Who did with their dealings of disability. I think they had started to even before that with the Zygons. I think that was a really good storyline about disability and the woman who had the asthma and how that is a part of you. It means that there's certain things like, as we were talking, you can be anything you want. No, actually, I don't believe that. I don't think we can be anything. I can't be a ballerina anymore. I'd wanted to with my whole soul, but that's not what I can do. But I can do other things that are just as freaking amazing and valuable. And just a real quick point, you said, ask me what I could say to disabled people. The other thing is to not throw your identity into what you do. And that was a big thing that I had to unlearn and relearn a million times because I kept putting my identity into I do this. And I had to find out what the core of those things were. Why did I find this valuable? Why did I find them valuable in my identity? And what that was is finding out like what was important in that. So in dancing, in art, in writing, in photography, it was all storytelling. All of that was imparting a bigger story, whether it was a message or an actual story. That was what I was and am. And that can now be transferred into things my body can do. It can be transferred into podcasting. It can be transferred into writing. It can be transferred into my art and my animations. So I think that the most important thing is this, if you are currently or newly disabled, is to take a beat and go, what was it that I really loved and why did I love it? And if I can't do basketball, I can't go running anymore. What was it that I loved about it and how can I transfer that into something that my body can do?
I think that's
And also Russell T. Davies needs therapy. That's my end on that.
well, everyone could add some other questions to ask after this. But everyone, this is Monica. You have her take on Russell T. Davies, rapper, and she's awesome. I hope you got to see in the last hour why I think she's awesome, and hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you.
Nick, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Did you love what you just heard? Help us reach more listeners by writing reviews on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Are you part of a health-centered community? Share us there. To find out more about today's episode, including show notes, transcripts, and more, please visit invisiblenotbroken.com. In need of community? Find us on Facebook and Instagram. This episode was edited by me, Ariana Alter. Thanks for listening. Be kind, be gentle, and in whatever way it looks like for you, be fierce.